All right. Well, hello to everyone who is watching this video. First of all, thank you. It is amazing whether you found this video through the Forgotten Storytellers or through my TikTok at The Real Crystalline or through the Alchemist Inkwell podcast. I'm so glad that you've arrived at this video where we can talk about the astrology of February together. So there is a lot going on in February. You've probably already heard some of it. And I just want to let you know how grateful I am that you are spending some time with me in this video to go through transit by transit, detail by detail, what February has in store for us and all of the ways that we can use it constructively, the challenging and the easy. There is a mix of both. And as I emphasized in a recent episode of the Alchemist Inkwell podcast, there is never a reason to be afraid of any kind of transit that is going on. And I'm going to make sure that I really emphasize the reality of what the transit may feel like, and then ways to actually use it to your benefit, to flow with it, to use that energy in a way that you come out on top and you come out feeling productive and like you've made a difference in your own life. And the fact that my phone just went off right there, hopefully is a good divine indicator that we are on the right track already. So speaking of on the right track, February opens with immediately having a new moon on February 1st. So as we do the lunations, which is the full moon and the new moon of February, and as the sun transitions into Pisces, I will show those charts so I can show you a little bit about what it's like to navigate a chart. And so with that, I'm going to quickly share my screen so that you can see the amazing chart for this new moon. And there it is. So what we're looking at with this new moon is a new moon in Aquarius. And you can see that because the moon is new, thanks to the sun and the moon being conjunct with each other. And they are both in Aquarius. They are also both very close to Saturn. The sun will conjoin with Saturn later in the month by a few days. And Saturn is actually the traditional ruler of Aquarius. So it is also the ruler of this lunation energy. So one of the things that this brings about in this energy is a looking ahead to the way that we structure things. Aquarius has a lot to do with foresight, with being a little bit ahead of their time. So if you're an Aquarius sun or an Aquarius rising or have a lot of Aquarius placements, you may feel that. You may feel that uniqueness of being just out of sync, but possibly a little ahead of where everything is in that current moment. And that's a good thing. You are supposed to be unique. You came here to express that. That is an Aquarian theme. And that is also a theme of this new moon. It's also important to look at Mars right here, who is exalted in Capricorn. Capricorn is also ruled by Saturn. So in this new moon, many of the roads, if not all of them, seem to lead back to Saturn as the ruler because we have so many planets in the same place right now. All of these placements that you see will all come back to Saturn as the ruler. Jupiter is actually in his own domicile over here with Neptune and Uranus. So that is the chart that we are looking at. And what we can expect from this new moon with Mars exalted in Capricorn, trine Uranus, and coming into conjunction with Venus is this sort of energy, especially with the little blue line here showing that they are sextile with Jupiter. Creates an opportunity to generate some action, gathering the people and the materials and the resources to actually take action, which is a great feeling to be able to have at this point in all of our lives. If you've been feeling stagnant, this new moon energy may actually begin a process of being able to take more action, of being able to get out, to do more things, to feel like you have a path ahead of you that you can see the steps on. So you might be passionately organizing change in your life. And this may come with certain senses of ease, but also with certain challenges. Sometimes the greatest changes in our lives make themselves known because they let us know by breaking something else or by creating a tension or a conflict that brings it to our attention. If things are too easy all the time, we miss opportunities because we just don't see them, because things just are going almost too smoothly for us to be able to recognize. So one of the things that a sextile is interesting about, as compared to a trine, which is super ease, a sextile brings an opportunity. It shows you an opportunity for growth, an opportunity to take advantage of something. And so with Mars in this sextile application with Jupiter, we are creating an opportunity for some rapid expansion, which, if you really pay attention to the ruler of Saturn applying its domicile, its little oversight to everything, you might say, okay, I have the opportunity for rapid expansion, but measured expansion, rapid expansion in a way that will last, to create enduring change. And with a new moon, we are beginning new cycles. So beginning on a good foot, beginning in a way that sets you up for long-term success, sustainable success, more in that Aquarian kind of zone, is a really great idea. So one of the things that I recommend is, if you've been living according to certain rules with yourself lately, it's a great time to look at those and not necessarily break them, but maybe give yourself a little bit of grace, maybe release yourself from certain rules that have been too restricting and no longer serve you, or learned to bend the rules around you. After having mastered them and understood the value of them, see where they can change and grow and evolve for a sustainable, equitable, humanitarian kind of energy that takes you into the future in a way that leads to a fantastic opportunity for you, something that sets you up for success, while also setting you up, with Aquarius being a very humanitarian sign, setting you up to help and contribute to the collective or to society, or something that really makes you feel fulfilled in the long term. So the affirmation I recommend for this, and I'll say this in the Alchemist Inkwell podcast as well, is I have the tools to make positive change. That's all you really need to understand, is that you already have everything you need to make positive change. And now with this new moon, you get to visualize what that positive change looks like and how you want to go about doing it. So one of the ways that I recommend doing that in a tangible sense is to review your ideals, the causes you support, the things that are important to you, those things which educate your choices when it comes down to it. And make sure that those are things that mean something to you. Many times we share the beliefs and the values of people around us who are important to us. And that's good if they are aligned with what we truly need and what we truly believe and feel. Sometimes they're not. So it's okay to say, I respect and accept that this person believes that. And in my case, I find this to be valuable. I find this to be important. And they can both exist, and they can both be present in everyone's lives and in your life at the same time. Everybody honoring who they are and what's important to them, their truth in that respect. So reviewing your ideals, your causes, making sure that they mean something to you, and taking action where you have influence. Another thing that's been really on my mind lately is the idea of placing your energy and your intention, which goes along with the new moon really well, placing that into a thing that you want to see more of, into something that you want to see flourish. One of the things that we tend to do is we give so much of our attention resisting things, not wanting things, getting angry or upset over something that we see, that we could take control of that situation, flip it on its head by saying, this is what I don't want. So I will give my attention to potentially the equal and opposite thing. If I want less eggs in a basket or things like that, you could take the eggs out of that basket and put it into a new one. So what are those ideals that you have? And you can identify them by recognizing the things you don't want and flipping that around and saying, if I don't want this, then the remedy for that, the equal and opposite, the thing that cures that or resolves that, is over here. I'm going to give my attention to that. Then you are helping your own mental health, you're helping your own clarity, and you're making a larger impact, a more radical difference that actually can be measured and bring you joy along the way. So I think those are things that you definitely deserve. And I hope with this new moon, wherever it falls in your particular chart, which again, the horoscopes for each rising sign will be on my TikTok at The Real Crystalline. So you can see what area of life this is impacting for you the most. And then you can adapt to it, use any suggestions that may feel aligned to you, either from this video, from the TikToks, or anything that just feels right. You'll know you're amazing. You have great instincts. And this new moon is ready to help carry you forward with those. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen as we go into the more mundane middle ground transits between the next moon. So it's me again. Hello. Great to see you. I'm going to go ahead and bring up our transits. The next important transit, the next direct and exact transit will actually be the very next day. So this will be on it's on the 3rd. I'm not good at math. I am pretty good at astrology. So on February 3rd, we will experience Mercury finally stationing direct. Now, Mercury has been in retrograde since January 14th, and you've probably been hearing about it, but you may also have been experiencing it. I know for me, a lot of technological glitches have happened, and certain things like that have had to slow down, be taken one step at a time. Things have glitched or broken or caused me to, again, just take a slower pace with certain things, but that's okay because you can remind yourself that was the time for it. Now we come into post retrograde. Now, what this means, you might hear the term post shadow, and that is a thing. But all it means is since Mercury was moving backwards, now it's got to move forward over the same distance that it actually recovered during the retrograde. So if Mercury, if Mercury was moving backwards, now it's going to move forward. So the same span of distance will get recovered again. And that's actually not a bad thing. It's just finally saying all of these things that I was able to revisit, to rework during Mercury retrograde will now be cemented and prepared for moving forward. So it's like, I always like to envision repairing a stage that you get to perform on afterwards, but you need to make sure that that stage is going to hold up. So that's what you did during Mercury retrograde. Now you're making sure that everything is solid and ready to go, doing your final checks before moving forward with the show. So that is what we will be experiencing with Mercury until February 24th. Then Mercury will have recovered all of those degrees and we will be in new territory. So that is something to keep an eye on, just knowing that resolutions are on the way for things that may have come up for you since the 14th of January. Then we move on to the 4th of February, which brings us Mars sextile Jupiter exact. We talked about that a little bit during the new moon, but now it is by degree at the same degree. And on this day, the sun will also conjoin Saturn, which we saw a little bit of a preview of in the new moon. So what this looks like is, again, Mars is doing really well. Jupiter is doing really well. Mars is exalted in Capricorn, where he is right now. Jupiter actually rules Pisces in the traditional sense, in the sense that I like to follow. So Jupiter is strong. Mars is strong. Saturn also rules Aquarius, so very strong. The sun, believe it or not, finds its detriment in Aquarius. So the most inhibited planet involved in these two aspects today is the sun, though the sun is now conjoined Saturn in Aquarius. So you have what is called the Sun Saturn cazimi, which is them coming together and Saturn beginning a brand new cycle. So we are refreshing with Saturn in Aquarius, which is a nice refresh to have. It's very fresh. It's very verdant. It's very, again, looking forward to a future that is something sustainable and equitable and wonderful and humanitarian, where it's just a wonderful society to imagine. So looking forward to this cycle being one of growth and setting up our structures to support each other, which I think is going to be really neat to watch unfold as this cycle goes forward. So what can we expect looking at that? It's an idea of rapid expansion, again, with Mars being really rapid and Jupiter being all about expansion, particularly with Jupiter in Pisces. I do like to mention that this expansion might be very internal. Pisces is deep. Pisces has a lot of depth. That is the bottom of the ocean. That's that which we usually don't see coming up and saying, hey, let's really get comfortable with who we are in all phases and shades. So you might find rapid expansion, but rapid expansion that feels a little bit more tangible, a little bit more in your awareness, thanks to Saturn conjunct the sun. The sun is your energy, your authority. It is the person that you are. So as we're seeing the energy that the sun is going around the zodiac, yes, it's a little bit in detriment right now. We don't have the most energy that we might tap into, especially if you're really affected by the sun being in Aquarius. And you can see that kind of reflected in nature, particularly in the Northern Hemisphere, where nature just isn't as vibrant and isn't as flourishing in the Northern Hemisphere as usual. So seeing that reflected as a period of rest, a period of waiting before rising again. The sun gets to have one of those too, since Aquarius is opposite the sun's ruling sign of Leo. So we're experiencing a new structure coming into being, and there might be some pretty rapid steps taken in that, especially at the very beginning. So it's a leap forward in new structures that we might be able to see this time. So I'm really excited to see how that plays out. In your own life, you may notice that you do get a giant leap in your life, and that might show you the path that you are taking as you move forward. So that will be very insightful for you to be able to take into account as you are moving through your life and saying, what do I need to support myself with that day? It might become pretty clear with something that moves forward a little bit more easily, an opportunity that comes up to say, hey, do you want to take this next big step? And you get to decide based on your intuition, based on your instincts, if that's the right step for you. And then we move forward to the 8th of February. And on this day, Mars will trine Uranus in Taurus. So Mars, still exalted in Capricorn, will trine Uranus in Taurus. Uranus has been there for a while, and it has been getting a lot of attention, especially in 2021, as it squared off with Saturn a couple times. So we're noticing a change in our structures, a revolution in the way that we do things. And we're deciding that old ways are great. They functioned for as long as they did. And now we need to upgrade a little bit. And that seems to be something that is really coming into prominence. And with Mars trine Uranus, there may be some cool advancements that go along with that. This is aligned process and change, or aligned progress and change happening quickly. So that is something to just keep an eye on. You may see this more in the headlines than in your personal life, with Uranus being an intra-personal planet, transpersonal. It moves very slowly. So we see the effects roll out over the course of years rather than days. And so that happens more for people rather than in a personal sense. So seeing some things in the headlines where things have really leapt forward, that's a really great thing to be able to look forward to. And with Mars exalted at this time, I would expect that the promise of that is something progressive, something that is headed towards something positive. We may also find that some people are extremely ambitious and feel bolstered in that ambition. So they may do something to change things in their lives or in the area around them or in an influential place that is just really quick and really influential. And we'll be able to see that happening as well. So at the same time, we do have Venus finally coming into conjunction with Mars. They're going to be traveling together for quite a while. So Venus conjunct Mars adds a little bit more of a softness, and Venus rules Taurus. So Venus is influential not only for Mars, but for Uranus at this time. And so that is saying, if Mars is, let's say, aggression, ambition, drive, Venus is the softness, peace, aesthetic. So we have a combination of those two things, sort of a combination between the divine masculine and the divine feminine, really figuring out where a compromise is, where a balance is for that. So another thing I like about this is, with Venus having influence here, finding balance and keeping things a little bit more on the peaceful end might be very helpful. It might be something that really shows up as Venus and Mars come closer together in what feels very much like a compromise after conflict, you know, figuring things out through compromise. And it's not always the easiest conversation in compromise. There is win and there is, again, compromise. There is give and there is take. So that is something that I think we'll be able to see kind of play out archetypally throughout February and even March, because they will be going together for all of February and until the end of March. Then we come to February 11th, and I'm going to move my chart forward there, at which time Mercury will conjoin Pluto. Now, again, you've probably been hearing a lot about Pluto, especially as we've been approaching February, because the United States particularly is experiencing its Pluto return. I am going to do an entirely separate video for this for several reasons. One, I want to go into detail so you have plenty to be able to know and work with, but also because not everybody watching this video might be from the United States. So we don't need to make this a super long video just to fixate and focus on the United States. I will do a separate video for that. And if you are interested, you are more than welcome to watch it. It's pretty interesting to see. I had a good time really dissecting the chart and the transits and seeing what potential is there. So it's really cool. But Mercury at this point will conjoin Pluto on the same degree, 27, that the Pluto return is happening on. So it's the first touch right before this happens. And Mercury, of course, has conjoined with Pluto at this degree 2 or 3 times now. So it would have been direct, and during the retrograde, it did it again. And now in the post retrograde, it is going through one more time. So this is not an energy that we haven't felt before, but it is that final pass that is helping us unearth and integrate certain information that could be really transformative, creating new ideas, new ways of thinking, setting you up on a personal level with Mercury bringing this into our minds, and Pluto maybe taking this a little bit transpersonal, just creating new ideas, creating new truths, bringing information to light that wasn't available before, or again, reiterating information that has been coming up recently, saying, hey, this is serious, we're taking this seriously, and now we're going to do something about it. So the first pass might have said, hey, this is something that we need to pay attention to. During retrograde, it would have come up again. And now at this pass, it's let's lay this to rest and integrate it and make sure that it is something that doesn't come back to haunt us in that whole death and rebirth kind of comparison that we like to make with Pluto. So I will be talking more about Pluto as a planet in that video about the United States Pluto return. So I'm going to spare you right now so that we can move forward to the 14th of February. And on the 14th, Mercury will move into Aquarius. And so what we're experiencing that day is Mercury coming into the same sign where Saturn and the Sun are. And at this point, Mercury has been in Capricorn, and it was in Aquarius for a little while back in January before it went retrograde, and then it went back into Capricorn. So these, again, are things that are coming back up to be finalized from that retrograde cycle. And so if you think about Mercury having been in Capricorn for a while, Capricorn is very earthy. It's the roots. It's the things that you grow out of. And with Aquarius is air. It's the sky. So we're taking things from the roots and bringing them up into our awareness where we can see them taking form around us in the form of ideas, in the form of technology, all sorts of things like that. So Mercury in Aquarius does this every year, sure, but this may be a time where we see, especially with Saturn and the Sun being present as well, just new ways of understanding technology, new ways of looking at things, and in your own life, just really taking in foresight and really understanding where it is you're headed and finding some clarity when it comes to that. I like to personify Mercury in Aquarius as very futuristic technology, because that is what it very much feels like. The next thing we will experience is the full moon, which I'm going to bring up on my chart so you can see it. So the full moon will be on February 16th, and I'm going to go ahead and share the screen. Here we go. So this is the full moon chart for February 16th. And what we're seeing now, because the moon was in Aquarius before for the new moon, now we are coming halfway through the cycle where the moon is currently in Leo. Leo is traditionally ruled by the sun, so you see this balance happening between them now too. Things that we can look forward to or expect perhaps from this moon is an assessing of the things that make us feel seen, the things that make us feel passionate, the things that maybe contribute to our ego, our sense of self, with the sun again being opposing its own domicile sign and the moon being in there saying, how do I feel about the way I present myself? How do I feel about the way I expect other people see me? And what is the thing that lights my passion and lights my fire? So those are questions that may be coming up around the time of this full moon. And the moon with the sun, it's a very personal thing. So while you may notice headlines doing things along these lines as well, it's something that's very much something you can take advantage of on a personal level. And at the same time, we do have Jupiter forming a sextile with Uranus. So Jupiter over in Pisces still is forming this sextile with Uranus pretty close. So creating opportunities again to shift our subconscious perspectives, change our views, see things from a different light, and hopefully from one that is more healing and accepting, imagining your best self, and then beginning to show up as that person so that the world can get to know you the way you want to be known, the way you want to be seen. We also have Venus and Mars now in an exact conjunction. And so this is, again, passionately driven towards change. They are still forming this trine with Uranus. It has officially exact passed, but it's still kind of close enough that we might still be feeling it. And so you're passionately driven towards change, which is really adding to that Jupiter aspect. And we may be feeling this on very personal and emotional levels, a sense of unity in adversity, a sense of wanting to find common ground, and wanting to create peace in a place that has felt a little bit tumultuous might be there for us to take advantage of as well. This is a time where we may be choosing our battles based on things that are important to us and just saying, this is what I support, this is what I stand for. And I now have the courage and the passion to be able to say, this is where I am. And that may be bringing some surprises in your life where you realize who you are and what you stand for really helps you to make radical change in your life, as represented by Uranus and Taurus, which again is ruled by Venus. So there is that extra sense of beauty in the personal way that this might be showing up. An affirmation that I recommend for this is, I am driven by my joy and not my anger. Keeping that in mind, that the things that feel aligned are the things that do bring you joy. So you hear Marie Kondo all the time with the sparking joy. That is a great way to guide yourself and to know where you're headed and what is aligned for you. And I highly recommend it. Another thing I recommend on this day is heart opening stretches. And you'll find these in yoga. The fact that Mars is so very corporeal and likes to have energy and make progress and do things, along with Venus, who is very into beauty and indulgence and just feeling at peace in your own body and being able to allow yourself to feel expressive and opened with heart opening exercises, or even cacao, which is a heart opener on its own. Having a little full moon cacao ceremony may be fantastic for you at this time, especially with the fact that this is a Leo full moon. So just really coming to understand yourself and the way that you nurture yourself. The Venus-Mars conjunction, as I have mentioned, is going to continue. They will be kind of walking together hand in hand through around March 27th, when they will have separated enough for that to kind of dissipate. So anything that you're experiencing with this aspect is a process. It is a journey that you are going through, which means you do not have to rush it. And it means you can take your time with it and appreciate the journey as much as possible, one day at a time. There is no deadline on this. It will happen and unfold naturally. And that is something to be, again, enjoyed. So I hope that helps, as if this energy kind of pops up and you feel like, oh my gosh, I have to really make this fit and I have to make this work. It will. It is divinely timed that it will. So don't worry and don't block yourself up by worrying and stressing over time, because time is actually on your side. That's another thing that astrology really shows us pretty well. So that is the full moon that is happening in Leo on the 16th of February. And that'll be exact at around 11:56, 11:57 a.m. on the East Coast. You can adjust that to your time zone, the same as with the previous lunation as well. All right, and now we will move forward. The next exact thing we can look at is actually going to be on I have to get my charts in order here. Hang on a second. There we go. It's going to be on the 17th, I believe. Yes. So 3 days later, on February 17th, Jupiter will have its exact sextile with Uranus, which is also going to be kind of opposite from the moon. The moon is applying to opposition with Jupiter this day. Now, the moon does a lot of moving, so you don't always hear about transits that the moon is making just because it's pretty speedy. It's going around pretty quickly. But at this time, it is an interesting sense of tension with Jupiter as Jupiter is forming this sextile with Uranus. So this opportunity for change and expansion that comes up. And this is, again, between a social planet and a transpersonal planet. This is something that I would look at in the headlines to see what society is up to and what changes and expansions are happening in that area. And again, there are opportunities for change. So it is something that may begin as a process that starts around this time with a new path forward and a new system, particularly in areas of natural resources or supportive resources or even finances that come along with this. Ideally aligned with things that really support mental health and that kind of theme with Jupiter being in Pisces. But with the moon in Virgo opposing Jupiter, it really brings this tangibility of, okay, so Pisces tends to make things a little bit fuzzy and confusing, and expanding that with Jupiter just might make things more confusing. Thanks to the moon, this becomes personal. Thanks to the moon in Virgo, this becomes something we can analyze. So I think the moon really balances this change that is happening and makes it something that can be done with a practical manner. And I'm really hoping that that is what ends up being the case, where Jupiter with Uranus shows this opportunity for change, and it's big and it's high concept, but it is something that actually can be, with the moon opposite Jupiter and trining Uranus, something that we can actually tangibly work with, make efficient, and really shore up things. So there may be a new process that comes around where it's like, hey, this works. Let's start using it. And I hope that that is the case. The next event that we can look forward to is Pisces season, which actually takes place on the 18th of February. And so I get to share my screen again, and we are already at February 18th. So February this year, I believe, is only 28 days long. It's an interesting month, even though for me, I don't know if you guys are the same, but I always feel like February is the longest month. I don't know how it does it, but it's something that I've noticed, probably because it's cold where I am, and I do not thrive in cold as much as I wish I did. All right, so we are looking at Pisces now. The sun, as you can see, comes into Pisces, and now the whole dynamic of the sun having been with Saturn is changing over. The sun moves, of course, every month. So happy birth month to all of the Pisces suns that are watching this. It's so good to be able to welcome you into your season. And Pisces season marks the end of the zodiacal calendar as we approach Aries, which is the official first sign of the zodiac. So we are coming to completion with the themes that have been going on over the last year. And that is something to really be able to take stock of. This is a great time for reflection, for integration, for resting before coming back to work again. So in this case, we do have the sun in Pisces, and it will conjoin Jupiter, and it's 11 degrees away. It's a bit of a stretch, but it won't be long before it comes into having an effect there. So we are, again, expanding our consciousness and having an opportunity for inner peace and healing, and just taking a moment to realign and find our presence in the moment, our consciousness in the moment, instead of feeling swept along by the current that has been really active over the past few years. So Jupiter at this point is still pretty sextile to Uranus. You can see it's still in that 11 there. So they are still pretty close, even by the minute. They are very close together. So we're allowing change as a part of nature, allowing ourselves to really just flow with what's going on. As we kind of talked about previously, those themes are still into play. Mars is still conjunct Venus. They are now trine the moon in Virgo. So we have Mars and Venus right here at 18 degrees Capricorn. The moon is in Virgo at around 23. So again, when the sun comes into Pisces, this will technically have passed, but probably only by a few hours. So we'll still be feeling what this feels like. And that really gives us the opportunity to analyze our emotions, to witness them, to ground what we're feeling. And if you're someone who has ever experimented with witnessing your emotions, it can be extremely transformative, which is very interesting as well, since the moon at this degree is applying to trine with Pluto in Capricorn. So Pluto being transformation, using the witnessing of our own feelings to transform how we understand ourselves, to transform the way we interact with ourselves, the kindness that we give to ourselves, the peace that we give to ourselves. A lot of these themes really show a trend of inner transformation through rest, through grace, through forgiveness, acceptance, and through witnessing all of these things. You can find that forgiveness. You can find that acceptance. You can say, I felt this and I can see why. And so one of the ways I actually tend to do this is I will talk about my brain as a separate entity for myself and say, my brain thinks this and my brain feels that way. And then I'll be able to remove myself from the equation enough to analyze why my brain thinks that way or feels that way. And then I can make the changes knowing that no one's done anything wrong. There is no aggressor in the situation. It's simply a situation that has been interpreted. And now I have that objective point of view that I can move forward with. And I really like the idea of Virgo perhaps lending its efficient analytical energy to this situation to say, yeah, a lot of stuff is happening and it might feel a little wishy-washy, but you can understand this. You can root it and ground it and understand and move forward. And another thing that's really great about Virgo is it does support health, physical health, but also service to others. So this is an opportunity where you can help yourself and give yourself the love and grace that you might be more willing to give others on a regular basis. Turn that towards yourself during this month. This is an amazing setup for an establishing moment for the month ahead. So that is something also to look forward to. And then I will stop sharing the screen one more time. On the 20th, we do have the US Pluto return. So that will happen on the 20th of February. And hang on a second, I just swapped the wrong charts here. And like I said, I will be bringing those details into another video that we will be able to see, probably posted around the same time as this one. So by the time you're watching this video, that video should also be there, and you can jump over to that one when this one's done, or if you want to jump over there, watch it, and then come back to keep things chronologically linear. I don't blame you. I think that's pretty cool. But that is something I will bring up in the next video, and it is happening on the 20th of February. The next actual transit in February that is for the entire world is going to be Mars sextile Neptune. Now, this is a really interesting series of days that we're coming into because, as we know, Mars and Venus are conjunct. Neptune, however, is moving very slowly. So the exact interactions with Mars and Venus will be on 2 separate days, at least if you are in my hemisphere or even in my time zone. So what we're experiencing is Mars will sextile Neptune, which creates a sort of, again, Neptune dissolves things. It makes the edges very fuzzy and a little bit hard to discern. So with that, our next steps and what we thought was very clear may get a little bit fuzzy. But the very next day, we will have more things to bring clarity to it. So it seems like this is an opportunity to really learn to trust your gut instinct, to really say, I don't have something right in front of me that is tangible, that feels or looks like the next step. And now I might have to take a little bit of a pause. It's like a timeout in the middle of the game. But if you follow your instinct, you will be able to feel the alignment between that Neptunian spiritual connection and the Martian sort of like tangible, visceral, physical embodiment of what you are feeling. So gut instinct and following your gut may be something that you can take advantage of at this time. We may also see, again, some things get sort of confusing in the headlines. Whatever is going on may seem like confusion, and people may overreact because, if you don't see what's happening, you may react in fear, especially if Mars is influential. So this is a great time to be conscious of how you're acting. If you're not sure what to do, give yourself a breath. take a minute, even give yourself a day to think about it rather than reacting, because that might lead to a result that you would have preferred to be able to think about a little bit more. And the good news is on the 24th, we actually have the exact, what is it? The exact sextile, the sextile with Venus and Neptune. So at this point, we have Venus, thinking about something. We have Venus sextiling Neptune and Mercury the same day squaring Uranus. So creating an opportunity to really dream big. And I like to think of Venus and Neptune as a daydream, somewhere that you go, even though you're here in the real world, you can imagine very easily what your ideal life will look and feel like, which is a very helpful thing to be able to do under this energy, feeling it, following your heart, allowing yourself that little bit of a break from whatever is going on to just daydream, read a good book, get lost in a story, have that opportunity. And at the same time, you may find that small surprises that help move you back into alignment show up as Mercury squares Uranus. And those could help remove some obstacles and maybe contribute to the sextile opportunities that are showing up, or they may show where the blocks were because those things no longer work. Those things fall apart. So that is an opportunity where maybe on this day, taking a drive is not the best thing because you may be feeling a bit spacey, but if you have to go somewhere, make sure you're grounded, listen to a podcast, whatever. I'm sure you'll be safe. I'm not worried about it, but it is something archetypally that we can look at and just say there may be certain surprises that show up when it comes to traveling or your community or different ideas and thoughts, or this may be an amazing breakthrough for a plot hole in your story if you're a writer, that kind of thing. Something that changes to show you where something wasn't working before and can now be changed to work moving forward, especially something that really brings in some imagination to that. So that is something that we can see how it goes with as well. And really, that is the last aspect that we experience in February. So you'll have those next 4 days of February to really integrate that and flow with it and feel what it's like to have a couple days of not having big moments that affect you. So this is a really great vacation at the end of February that we get to come into. Just allowing ourselves to feel our feelings, swim around in them, and see how those can really set us up again for enduring well-being, which I really look forward to for all of us. So thank you to everyone who watched this. I think we did a pretty good job covering the transits. Feel free to watch it again if you need to. You can always see these transits expressed in the skits that I do on TikTok, and keep up with them on the Alchemist Inkwell podcast. We always talk about the lunations and I always briefly cover the transits, but this is your detailed opportunity to look into them from an astrological point of view. So I hope that it was enjoyable. I hope it was educational. I hope it was useful. And I look forward to next sharing with you the United States Pluto Return video, which will be posted at the same time as this one. So thank you to everybody and have a wonderful, wonderful February.